All right, hello everybody. Welcome to UK CORRAL, the podcast that reviews every single comic ever written by a British writer. I'm your co-host Mike L, and as always, I'm joined by Adamantium.
Yeowell.
Okay, and as usual, Pissed Off Man.
Yeah,
No.
my pseudonym is Nice Man. It's a pseudonym. Really, what's the real name? Pissed Off Man.
Never. Anyway, we're here. We cover pretty much every British comic ever made. This week we're doing Zenith, Book 2 by Grant Morrison and Steve Yeowell. And this first appeared in 2000 AD. And we're just going to zip through this because we got a lot to talk about. So Adamantium is going to quickly tell us what happened in the first chapter of Book 2.
Yes, so this one's a little unusual because it goes all the way back to 1944 with Maxi-Man, if we remember that gent. This is prior to his battle where we last saw him pass away. And essentially what happens is he is just having some crisis of faith. He's not really sure what's happening with him as a superhero. He seems to be having a relationship with the nurse, but everything's left vague enough. Well, at the same time, it's revealed that while he's being sent out to do battle with his adversary, the super soldier villain Nazi that we saw in the first volume, it's been announced that the United States has developed the atomic bomb and will be deploying it, essentially showing it's needless to send this character out to do battle, but they're sending him out anyway. And that's where it ends. I should say, this does a soft reintroduction of a character we've only briefly encountered in the previous volume named Pain. And Pain is going to be a very principal player in this volume of Zenith.
So I'll say the first thing I noticed, and it's been a while since I read Book 1, but the art looks really, really good. There's more attention paid to, I think, shadows and, cross-hatching and all that stuff. And it's inked by, is Steve Yeowell inking himself? It's hard to see. I think he is. And you'll pardon me, viewers, me looking at two different computer screens. It's because my screen is cracked, so I'm having a hard time. But the one thing I want to say about this issue is that this actually shows to me the strength of only having these 5 or 6 page chapters. Because if this was a 22-page comic, it would be hard to devote an entire issue to the supporting character. But it's cool how we can give 5 or 6 pages to Maxi. Is it Maxi-Man? Yeah. And then just the next week, jump to the next thing, So it's like a nice little interlude. It's a nice way to do it. What do you think, Nice Man?
Yeah. Because sometimes, when the two of you have spoken, just total agreement. There's really nothing to add. Just like you say. It's good to get reacquainted with Maxi-Man. Steve Yeowell's art is good for Zenith. Mm-hmm. This is a good example of it. And we need it for the context for what's coming.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm just mesmerized. Adamantium, what do you think?
This makes a great preface, and it's going to be bookended by the final chapter of this phase of Zenith, which is going to thematically tie things up. I'm going to say this early on, kind of spoiling my overarching feelings. And I love Grant Morrison's writing. They are one of my premier comic writers. I actually think the greatest strength of this run isn't even necessarily Morrison here. It's Yeowell. I really feel the art was already very pleasing for me in the first volume. Maybe it's because of the posture of the characters, the way that we're shifting this perspective from just slightly underneath Maxi-Man to a quarter profile shot, pulling back. Like, this page is a great example of how dynamic the art is, and really this thing that Mike talks about very often, where with a great graphic novel and great sequential art, sometimes you can just remove the dialogue and still understand the story. And for something as abstract as what we're seeing here with just these two figures talking and pulling away in terms of the mood, in terms of the gravity, it conveys it. Honestly, this is putting Yeowell in one of my top tier artist ranges, at least for this particular phase of Zenith. I am mesmerized by it.
I'll just say one more thing. yes, the art is much better in this run, but I also think the writing is too. Like, I did enjoy book one, but this book felt more like we were getting the Grant Morrison that we all know and love, which we'll find more about as we go on. But I'll just leave it at that because there's a lot more to talk about. So going in order of the heads in the order I see them. Nice man. Do you want to jump to the next one?
Yes, but I'm sure I'll probably need help from you because
Okay.
we see that this interlude 2, Pain, which of course sounds a bit corny, and at some point Grant Morrison has Zenith even make a joke about the name, like how corny. Oh yeah, Pain, like Pain. No, it's Peyne, but it's appropriate. So we see about this as usual. Mad scientist. Where would we be without mad scientists? And so this mad scientist is working on creating, Payne working on creating like super babies, a whole, can we say, flock of super babies. And he goes through a number of them. But with the last one, I was forced to shoot the sixth baby. Imagine that. I was forced to shoot the sixth baby. But then we waited for the next 4 births, and one of them was so bizarre they named it. Now, how have you always pronounced Chimera? Have you pronounced it like a hard k or a ch?
Well, I believe it's Chimera. I probably used to say Chimera, but it's Chimera, right, Adam?
Yeah, it should have that harder consonant sound, so it should be chimera, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's a word I've seen for decades, going back to Tomb of Dracula, but one of those I was always not quite sure how to pronounce it. Anyway, the birth of this one, which they called Chimera, is very mysterious, and you can only wonder just what kind of horror has been created with this super. Is it fair to say super baby? But anyway. Soon there's a whole bunch of them, and we see them, I think, on the next page, don't we? Here we are. And then kids, and then puberty arrived, and then their abilities begin to blossom. And but as we learn in the last panel of this page, these were not creatures who could be controlled or given orders. When they threw away their uniforms and refused to assist the USA in Vietnam, I applauded. I could not know how close the end was. So we have all these young super characters who apparently have a mind of their own because they refuse to assist the USA in Vietnam, because this is in the 60s. These are kids from the 60s. And then we have, they began disappearing one by one. 2 of them, White Heat and Dr. Beat, vanished in 1969. Is that 68 or 69? In 69, 68 and 69, Penelope Moon fell into a mirror and was lost forever, which is such a typical Grant Morrison thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Now,
yeah.
What happened to Penelope Moon? She fell into a mirror and was lost forever.
I know, right? I love it.
So these other characters have just disappeared. Penelope Moon was lost. Lux died. Voltage Mandala, not Mandela, Voltage Mandala and Red Dragon fell victim to a near-fatal illness. And when they recovered, they had lost their superhuman abilities. Now, excuse me for making a slight digression here. It says, and when they recovered, Voltage Mandala and Red Dragon had all lost their superhuman abilities. Who does this remind you of?
Are you saying the names?
No, this scenario. They fell victim to a near-fatal illness, but they recovered. But when they recovered, they had lost their superhuman abilities. Who does this remind you?
It sounds very familiar considering what we just spoke about the previous episode.
Miracle Man, Young Miracle Man, Kid Miracle Man?
Exactly, Kid Miracle Man. What if all these years Kid Miracle Man hadn't actually lost his powers and he was just repressing them, hiding them?
Mhm.
So we have a similar setup here, don't we?
Sure. Yeah.
And this comes years after Alan Moore's Miracle Man. What did Alan Moore say about Zenith?
What did he say? I don't know.
I know, it's such a setup, isn't it terrible? You have to excuse me. I don't know. What did Alan Moore say about Zenith? Well, he said it's a rip-off of Miracle Man.
It's inspired by it, but I mean, put it this. What do you think?
Well, because he found himself engaged in a bit of a war of words with Grant Morrison until finally he said, you know what, I'm just going to wipe Grant Morrison from my consciousness. I won't talk about him. I don't want to know anything about it. But at that time, there was a little bit of back and forth because he knew that Grant Morrison had been talking crap about Watchmen, saying it was the equivalent of a sixth form poetry, 300-word sixth form poem. Which prompted him to say, "Hey, well, your Zenith. This is just a rip-off of Miracle." Anyway, I'm sorry for the digression, but I like to digress.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Grant Morrison did flat out admit that they're inspired by Miracle Man, as was everybody.
Yes.
So, but then once the War of Words started, Grant Morrison pointed out that their career technically began first. I think Grant Morrison was published before Alan Moore. Little fun fact there.
Yes.
But anyway, I love the introduction of these 1960s rock star doppelgangers as these superheroes. This is an idea that I first had many years later. I guess I ripped it off from this, but like we can see here, like this guy is clearly Jim Morrison. Yes. I don't know if any of you can figure out who these others are supposed to be. I don't know if they're a one-to-one.
Well, I do love, and this is one thing I wanted to comment on. I don't think they're necessarily the others one-to-one parallels to real celebrities, but they're evoking the fashion of the 60s. And that, again, is something Yeowell did that I don't know how much Morrison had to put input for this design, but I just love that Yeowell went ahead and was able to concoct these things that really do look like, given the fashion of the 1960s, what would superheroes who already are going to dress up garishly have as their outfits? I love this. And there's other subtle references too. There's the character White Heat, and it said that she went missing in 1968, 68 being the year that the Velvet Underground released Light White Heat as well. So there's like a lot of subtle parallels happening here. And, it evokes back to one of my favorite themes of the previous volume we talked about, the death of the 1960s and the birth of cynicism and the rise of the yuppie. And that's going to be touched upon in this volume as well. Maybe not as much as in the previous one, but it's definitely a theme. And while I normally for world building, I would rather have a good story than someone just extrapolate this fantastical world, I'm very fascinated by this alternative history of what happens if superheroes existed. They were these pseudo-celebrities, and then they disappeared. And we're going to see permeations of exactly what sort of world that would be. But this sets up a great example of not only in the previous chapter seeing what happens in the 1940s with the superhero with Maxi-Man, what becomes of his lineage, and now we're setting into the contemporary zone with Zenith and what's going to be the contemporary hero, contemporary for when this book was published in 1988.
And Adam, just like you said about the costumes, I think the costumes are great because these characters are from the 1960s, but nobody is wearing their underwear on the outside of their pants. The costume designs are great. Most of the costume designs for super beings in the 60s were extremely boring and simple-minded, but some thought has really gone into this. So yes, I think if there were super beings in the 60s, they would look like this. They wouldn't look like characters who go running around with their underwear outside their pants.
Exactly. These are people who have been inspired by Sgt. Pepper's, the Velvet Underground. It looks like people dress up like from a Fellini film. Like there's all these touchstones of 1960s pop culture. It's a great combination. I love the design that they made for this.
You know, I've read a lot of silly takes in my day on Facebook and social media, but one of the silliest was somebody was criticizing Brian Hitch. Okay, now I really like Brian Hitch's art.
Yeah, me
And
too.
yeah, I really like his costume designs too for Ultimates and all that stuff. And I guess he had done something maybe 5 years ago, and someone was saying, "Oh, it looks like his costume designs for Ultimates." And so someone commented, "Phew, he's a one-trick pony," and it made me think: have you ever seen any superhero created between 1939 and 1955? They all have the Superman costume. Even Batman has just a Superman costume with different colors. You know, spandex, underwear, boots, like that's Superman, right? Once you get to the 1960s, then Carmine Infantino does the Flash. Everyone follows that kind of model. Even if you look at Jack Kirby's costume designs in the 60s, they were all virtually the same. Of course, there's variations, but they all had underwear. They all had big boots. You know, it's not, some people complain about Grant Morrison's jackets, but at least that's some type of different accessory. Like, why couldn't one of those Marvel's 60s superheroes have a jacket or I don't know what, something, right? Just a thought. All right, back to the important stuff. What do you think, Adamantium? Any thoughts?
No, I gave my thoughts already. I love the world building, and this is rare for me. Normally, I don't care that much for world building. I want the story, I want the themes. So when someone does world building so well that even I have to tip my hat, I think that says something. I am also going to show my cards, and I'm going to say, perhaps controversially, I think this is the best issue in the entire volume. I'll get to why
Really?
later.
Okay. So, okay, we'll keep going. I'll do the next one. Here we go. Prologue. Oh, another prologue. Down Under.
Okay, so these are a
So Adam takes
contingency.
over.
Sorry, I was just going to say.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a collection of the heroes that were just described as no longer being active, and the key is they're in an alternative universe.
Which is why Sydney looks the way it does, very futuristic.
Mm.
It's an alternative universe. This is easily overlooked because there's only so many limited pages, per issue. But yes, this is an alternative universe.
I know, and I mean, I do like the black and white, but in instances like this, I wish it was in color, just to hit it home a little bit harder. And then, okay, yeah, and this is where it kind of hits you over the head, but they come upon almost like a gladiatorial combat between two giant dinosaurs, right? And again, this is, Grant Morrison did intelligent dinosaurs in, I think, All-Star Superman. And here we have dinosaurs that have continued to live for 150 million years, right? So far now in 3 issues or chapters, we've jumped around to 3 different, basically, timelines, locations, and 3 completely different casts of characters, right? So, yeah, I'm loving it. Nice,
so
man.
what are we doing in this alternate universe?
That's a good question. Do you know? I don't remember.
When I was reading it, I thought, why have we gone here?
Oh, I thought that was another rhetorical question and you knew the answer.
Well, I mean, there is a very basic reason. It's foreshadowing. All it's doing is it's planting seeds for something that's going to happen near the end of the book. I have to agree with Nice Man. Well, I like the concept and the idea of people fighting dinosaurs like a bullfight is pretty intriguing and ridiculous in only a way Grant Morrison could write. I do think this maybe was too soon or the pacing wasn't correct because it just felt out of left field and we don't resolve this for so many issues. It's not touched upon to the point where I think it's really easy for a reader to forget these details or overlook what happened. But yeah, this is just planting seeds. Technically, I don't think we needed this issue here. We could have just jumped right to the next one and we would have had a better continuity with the 2 previous prologues. But be that as it may, we're having this just demonstrating something that's going to pay off later.
Yeah. Grant Morrison, once he gets going with something, I think his mind moves very quickly and we have to try to hang on. So he drops in important information here. I mean, there's this other alternate universe, and then there's information. Let's see, is it on the next page? Can we go to?
This is the last page.
Well,
I don't want to jump ahead just yet.
Page?
Yeah.
Was it previous? He's giving us info. Oh, there. You see about this world never had any superhumans. It's an ideal hiding place from the LLOIGOR, pronounce it as you will. And then there's talk about the alignment, so these are the seeds being planted, but we just have to go with it and kind of hang on, trusting that at some point this is all going to make sense, because right now it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Now, okay, so Adamantium and Niceman, do you think this benefits from being released weekly? Or does it benefit from being reread all in one sitting? The fact that it's kind of all over the place, and because I think it benefits from rereading, because if we sit and read this in one sitting, then we're going to get that payoff a lot quicker than someone who's reading it every week, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would think so. I'd think, wow, I have to wait a week now till I get a clue as to really what the hell's going on here.
It's essentially as if you're watching an anthology film. But the anthology film is broken up to episodes, where each episode's following different characters, and it only pays off in the final episode where all these characters coalesce. But even then, I don't know if that's a good analogy, because you still have this idea that it's part of a series, because eventually these characters are going to meet. Here, I feel this is just it could feel so arbitrary if you're just picking up an issue of 2000 AD, wondering what happened with Zenith, what happened with these other characters, why am I following these? And then the next couple issues, there's a greater sense of continuity happening in terms of the narrative. And I think it throws off the flow of it quite a bit. I would rather have seen sections of this particular book interspliced in subsequent releases or subsequent issues. Maybe one page of these heroes in this dimension for all of the forthcoming issues, showing that this is important, but slowly unrevealing what's happening. But be that as it may, it's not a bad sequence nor a bad issue. It just, I feel in terms of the pacing, it just doesn't feel like it's the best position for it.
Understandable. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. So I believe, yes. Oh, great cover. Adamantium, this is you.
Yeah, so we finally, in 3 issues, get Zenith. So he has had a bender, and he's being brought back home by a cabbie. He's some great character work. He's singing The Queen is Dead by the Smiths to himself as he's drunkenly wandering back inside his flat. And there's a great little bit of irony for the reader, where we've heard a message recorded on his voice machine as he's being pulled up in the cab, warning him to get out, that he's in danger, but he hasn't heard that, only the audience has. So that dramatic irony is played out while he's listening back to all of his voice messages, all this pablum, until the very last voice message where he's warned, you don't know me, but you need to get out, you're in danger, and that's when his door explodes.
Yep.
And he's face to face with an unsightly fellow. The actual, I think, design of this character, this is nothing against Yeowell's art. It's just, I think the position of it, and maybe even the character design, makes it kind of hard to parse out exactly what this thing is until you get different views of it. It's still rendered beautifully. It's just kind of, I think, a flawed design. Unfortunately, my one criticism for some of the character designs in this comic. But otherwise, yeah, we get straight into the action with this issue.
I know what you mean about this character design, because it's also because the camera is almost a little bit too close, and it's hard to figure out what he is. Like, oh, so his head is a missile, and, maybe if the camera pulled back a little bit, especially since it's the big reveal. But otherwise, I think it is a pretty cool design, so I am happy with it. And yeah, this is a nice little reintroduction to Zenith that I really enjoyed. Nice Man, what do you think?
A few things. Typically in American comics with American characters, if they ever show a character who in some way is disagreeable, they eventually kind of reveal, but really he has a heart of gold. but he could be disagreeable, grumpy, smoke a cigar, whatever. But as I've always found, ever since I went to came to live in the United States and worked, like in LA and in Century City, they're like obsessed with having characters who they would describe as sympathetic. And I always thought, what the hell is this sympathetic? And I think what they mean is there has to be elements of likability. And for me, always, I thought, no, I don't have to like the character. I don't really understand. Why do I have to like the character? So they're like afraid to do a character who's too disagreeable. But here, Zenith is a perfect example of an un-American character because he's a bit of an ass. Can we go? Let's see. Can we go back to the taxi?
Yep.
So here he is with the taxi, and it starts immediately. Taxi driver tells him, "Oh, you're Zenith, so your new record's terrible," which is wonderful because this is very British. There's no mincing of words, no niceties. Really, the average British person would tell you, "Oh, yeah, that's your record. Yeah, terrible." And I love the dialogue, don't you? Zenith says to him, "Here, keep the change and buy yourself some taste." It's a good dig. And then here we are, in his apartment, and I love the music. And you can say, "What music? This is a comic. There's no music," but we know it is because he's repeating the lyrics. Now all right, my weekly quiz question for you: which group is this? It's one of
the Smiths.
The Smiths, yes,
you mentioned that, yeah.
One of my all-time favorites, the best concert I ever attended, the Smiths.
Really?
Yes. So I loved, this. He's doing the Smith, one of the Smith songs. It just so I'm really entertained already by that. His exchange with the taxi driver, he's singing along to a Smith song, and so on. So, and then even it keeps going on the message machines. Zenith, I know in the previous page, it says Zenith. It's Jane and Emma. Two late, not just one girl, two girls, two women. It's Jane and Emma again. Sorry we couldn't make it to your birthday. He says, "Huh? I'm not." Wonderful. Isn't that great?
Oh, yeah.
And then his agent is trying to call. And there's so much going on so quickly. His agent's calling about him doing a tour of the United States. It's all very disarming stuff, and who's at the door at this time of night. And as you say, finally, we get to the last message, and I love that panel with the chub sound effects. That's a great panel. Lovely use of motion lines, and
I agree.
The angle of the body, and just wonderful. That's it.
I agree. Yeah, this is great.
And then the last panel, very impressive, but just like both of you said, I was trying to make out, well, what exactly is the design of this thing? I couldn't quite get that. But yeah, I mean, very overpowering, which it's meant to be, to show the threat to Zenith.
We all clearly enjoy this one, so we can jump right to the next one. And Nice Man, it's actually your turn to summarize.
I think I digress too much. It makes it hard going for everyone.
No, it's fine. It's good.
Well, in this one, so he's been blasted out of his flat, but there are two characters, mystery characters, who apparently attached a camera, a GoPro before there were GoPros. To this character's helmet. Is called Warhead, and Warhead is responsible for knocking Zenith through a big hole in the wall of the flat. And then on we go, and lots of kind of fighting. Zenith is trying to hold his own, but it's very tough. And then the fighting continues, but I think he's outmatched. And this is all being viewed by these two mystery characters, one of whom is wearing a clown nose. And why is he wearing a clown nose? Because every year in Britain, there's a week for comic relief where they raise money for charity, and as part of that, the clown nose symbolizes comic relief. So that's a nice little visual touch, because here we are with all this all-out action with Zenith and what's his name? Warhead, and then down in the bottom corner we see one of the two mystery characters with the clown nose. These are good touches, but Zenith is now going to be, let's see, he's come upon by Phaedra Kale. Phaedra Kale, who had been trying to leave him messages, and she's from the CIA, and she's trying to get him out of this situation.
Is that no? That's not the end. There's still one more page, and then.
Right. And in the other page, what do we see? This kind of James Bond type mystery, subterranean, super science place, and the two mystery guys they know more about Zenith because they obviously know his parents, because as one says, he has his mother's eyes.
And then I love the
setup.
but then the other character says, "Really? I thought we had his mother's eyes." And then the reader is like, "What the heck does that mean?" Right? That's great. Right.
Yes,
I love it. It's a great setup. Yeah, this is a good issue, of course. This page right here is an example of how confusing. And I don't know if it's because it's black and white, but this is obviously a very well rendered image, but I cannot tell like where Warhead is and where Zenith is, if he's there, so that's just a victim, I think, of the black and white, and also being maybe too zoomed into the character.
Actually, Mike, I want to follow up on that. I think
Sure.
This is one of the few times in this comic run I think there's a failure of having good sequential art.
Okay.
Well rendered, everything looks great in terms of its technical ability, but not so much in its sequential ability. Because what's actually happening here is that character Phaedra has a strobe light gun, and it basically fries the robot Warhead's brain. It makes it disoriented so Zenith can land a blow and actually become victorious in this fight. You don't know that from looking at the imagery. You could only assess that off of what characters are saying. And even then, it doesn't directly say that Phaedra had the gun. She actually is slowly putting the gun inside her purse in the next sequence. And what's odd about that is I had no idea exactly where the strobing effect came from, because they just mentioned a strobe light. It was only later on where we're going to figure out, oh yes, it was the gun that did this, at least for me in my reading. So I think this is one instance of a failure of the art sequentiality. With that said, I don't want to make excuses for Yeowell, because I think, again, a fantastic technical artist. I do think it was very busy on this page. I wonder if because of page numbering restrictions, they had certain layouts that they had to condense last minute, and maybe that had something to do with it. It's the one critique of the sequential nature of the art I'm going to make in this entire phase of Zenith. So I just want to make that clear. It is intriguing to see these characters. Like Nice Man said, I love that touch of the clown nose on the one mysterious person, taking the piss basically out of the cliche of these two shadowy figures looking on, ruminating over the fate of what's going to happen to Zenith. It's a great deconstruction and a little bit of a punch down of that whole cliche.
Yeah.
If I were to give a solution, I would say you would show, instead of this one giant panel, show like 6 panels. If you're trying to show the strobe effect, that's how you show it, right? This just looks like big white blotches in the middle of an image. So I just thought. No,
it's probably the right thought, and probably Steve Yeowell would say, sitting here now in 2025, looking back on that in 1988, that's what I would have done.
Also, I like the introduction of this character, Phaedra Kale. Very, very cool character. So I like how she's brought into the story.
It's a good thing she's going to be a long-standing character.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think she looks a bit rough?
Rough? Yeah, I suppose.
No.
No.
Matronly, if anything.
Oh, matronly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll jump to the next one. This is my turn now. let's see if I can remember what happens here. Oh yes. Okay. So now we're joined in with a conversation between what's her name? Jeez, I already
Phaedra.
forgot. Phaedra, Zenith, and this is who is this again? Oh, this is
Agent. No?
this.
Yeah, isn't it his agent?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I love this line here. U.S. intelligence say, "Isn't that a bit of a contradiction in terms?"
But that's a cliche. That's a cheap
Sure.
British dig.
But we're just getting some exposition here, and I just love how Zenith is always just kind of off on the sidelines, doesn't ever really give a shit about what's going on. I love that.
Right.
And they kind of touch on the superheroes like Ruby Fox, Peter St. John. So we get a little bit of that, and I love how it's just funny how in the middle of this conversation, what looks like a bullet comes through the glass in the middle of this conversation, and then they're shocked. They look over at Zenith, and he's just like missed, and then the other two just carry on with their conversation. But then after they're talking some more, there's another shot, and then they look outside, and I love this kind of image. I've never heard of such sorry, how could there possibly be anyone at the window? We're 17 stories up. It's just a nice, if this was an American comic book, they would probably explain that with a little caption at the bottom, right? Or like a little footnote. But I just love how this is all just left. The pieces are there and we have to put it together. I'm not saying it's genius, but it's well done. Adamantium, what do you think?
What I like about this is that it's a very brief issue. All it really does is establish characterization. It moves the plot forward a little bit, basically showing that Phaedra and then Zenith are going to go search for Zenith's parents. That's the promise, which was a cliffhanger in the previous volume. But with this, the whole crux of this is basically to show what a prick Zenith is. Like you said, he doesn't need to be a sympathetic, nice character. He's not. But he's engaging regardless, and it is very refreshing for someone, in this case Grant Morrison, to go, what if I make a character that's really engaging, but is completely unlikable? Mm-hmm. And that does not deviate throughout the course of this particular story. I just wanted to throw that out there. I love that characterization.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I just like distinctive characters. I don't need them all to be likable. I'm really hate the cliched, here this guy's a tough guy, rough guy, curmudgeon, and you know it because he smokes a cigar, but really he's got a heart of gold when it comes right. No, screw this. No, I can relate more to a character like Zenith than I can to these pseudo curmudgeonly guys. To his agent, how come you're not wearing this red nose? Listen, it's comic relief day, Eddie. You're letting the side down. It's wonderfully irreverent. There's always irreverence, isn't there? In some of the British writers, they put in these irreverent touches. So even having one of the bad guys, the mystery bad guys, wear a clown nose, it's irreverent in a way. Irreverent to what? Typical American comic books where the bad guys are serious and, just that's it, always serious and in the shadows. No, this guy's wearing a clown nose. Mm-hmm.
And I love the characterization too, also the facial expressions, because I kept looking at Zenith thinking he reminds me of a lot of pop stars from the 1980s. Morrissey came up mainly because of the Smiths song from earlier, but he makes these facial expressions that remind me of Richard E. Grant in that way that he's so distinct for his facial contortions. I love that. I love that. Everything you need to know.
I can't picture him. Who is he?
Have you ever seen How to Get Ahead in Advertising or With Nail and I?
With Nail and I, yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the skinny fellow in that. A great character actor who is very underutilized. But anyway, with that said, that's an expression of the comedy that Nice Man was talking about, which I love.
He's in a film I saw very recently, Nuremberg.
Which I haven't seen yet. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we can jump to the next one, but I obviously love this chapter.
Oh, the last thing is because Phaedra Cale is American, right? CIA. So she says, okay, I've had enough of this Monty Python stuff. Zenith's coming with me, and I will not be dictated to by some old Scotch fairy. So, I'm glad that this was in here, because sometimes I hear people refer to people from Scotland as they're Scotch, and I always think, no, that's a drink.
Right.
A drink. And as he says, excuse me, it's Scots, if you don't mind. Scotch is a drink. Exactly. And finally, somebody said it,
I'm with you. Again, this is dialogue you're not going to see anywhere else at this point. This is like 1988 or 89. Yeah, this is just great. Okay, so we'll jump to the next one. So number 4, and this is, I believe, Adamantium.
So this one's interesting because we don't really see the principal characters. Basically, St. John, aka Mandala, is part of this news broadcast where he's having to explain himself. There's accusations that he's using his psychic abilities to manipulate people to vote for the Conservative Party and to exploit other political entities to his gain. But this also is paralleled with these two figures that we've seen previously. We're seeing the battle between Zenith and Warhead. And what they're doing is they are changing commands in a nuclear submarine to launch nuclear warheads at London. So what's really intriguing about that is the one character who was wearing the clown nose previously is revealing, I designed the computer systems. I designed everything in here. So of course I can manipulate it to do that. So we're getting a contrast of manipulations. You have St. John talking candidly about how he's not guilty of exploitation, that he's not using his psychic abilities, but really underscoring the fact that it doesn't matter if I am or not. If I could just make everyone forget about this whole broadcast anyway. Yes. And then you have that contrasted with these people who are going to have a nuclear attack on London. It can be very James Bondy and a bit cliche to have that notion of these people wanting to hack into a computer system to fire nukes on London. But the contrast between these two types of political divisions I find very intriguing. The obviously coded terrorist and the terroristic politician. That I found very intriguing for this issue, and for that I did enjoy it.
And also, I just love where this is leading. Like, this is the setup for kind of the MacGuffin, I guess you'd say, of the climax of this book. And
yes,
it's just funny how, like you said, the bad guy's wearing a clown nose. They're making all these jokes. They're just so flippant about, no one's twirling a mustache. No one's making a speech. They're just casually talking about destroying, London. I love it. It's great. Nice man.
Yeah, all of the above. all the preceding.
Okay. I mean, really, yeah. Grant Morrison. I mean, okay, maybe this is a ripoff of Miracle Man, but this is still an excellent book, and it's again a cut above everything else that was being made at this time, I think. But anyway, okay, I guess we can just jump to the next one, Fire in the Sky. And Nice Man, you want to summarize this one?
Let's try. So Zenith and Phaedra are on a flight. Where are they flying, though? Do you know? To London?
They're flying to the facility where she believes there's information about his parents.
Ah, thank you. They're flying to a facility where they believe there's information about his parents. But we know, in the visual dramatic irony, that two super beings are flying quite near that flight. They're just flying with it. So this is very ominous. And now there's something here about, they begin to kind of get a clue about who is behind this threat to nuke London, and the name Wallace. Wallace keeps coming up because he was the father of energetics. Grant Morrison always loves to come up with these names. You'd think he would just take something regular. and but energetics. And as Zenith often speaks for us, the reader, when he hears that there's a Dr. Payne involved, and he says, "Oh, Dr. Payne, come on, this is like James Bond." And I love in the word balloon when he says Dr. Payne, Pain. Of course, she says, "No, it's Payne," which of course that sounds exactly the same. E-E, E-Y, W. E-Y, E-E space W-Y-E. It's just different, isn't it? So anyway, they talk about the superhumans that were created before and why they might be a threat. Payne receiving illegal funding to continue his experiments. And Zenith says, typical Americans, isn't it? If it's not Reds under the beds, it's superhumans. They're all just jealous. You even had to make up comics about them because you didn't have any real ones of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Grant Morrison, we know, loves to play with this kind of reality, unreality, right? This is like saying that Zenith is in our reality because he knows that in American comic books created Superman and all these other characters. Why did they do that? They don't have any real ones like me. Zenith. Yeah, nice playing, just playing with your head, playing with your eyes, playing with your emotions. And so anyway, then a passenger notices that there's a super being flying outside the plane. It's a bit reminiscent of William Shatner's scene in Twilight Zone when he sees, the gremlin. And these two characters are kind of flying rings around the airplane. And then the airplane finally lands and you see, what does Zenith say? So this is Glasgow. No wonder Eddie left. But he can do this because he's Scottish. But Zenith is English. But Grant Morrison can make this joke about Glasgow. And of course, it's raining. And then we use some words from Close Encounters for the last panel. Keep watching the skies. Why? Because we know there are superhumans flying around ominously.
I would call that little sequence Alan Moore-esque. I don't know that just that last, like just the hints at the superhumans following them, and then at the end, the fact that he's unaware of it, but the fact that he says, how are we supposed to know what's going to happen next? There's only one answer to that, Phaedra, keep watching the skies, which is paralleled by the fact that we literally can keep watching the skies, Yes,
I think it's fair enough to say it's Alan Moore-esque.
What's great about this, too, is that because during this conversation on the plane, there's a lot brought up about Zenith's parents. So there is this very clear connotation, this hint that this pair of flying beings might actually be Zenith's parents that are following him around, because there was a pair of beings outside of the big complex where he was meeting his agent. So this is insinuating something. And I think the payoff is going to be quite interesting because it's not exactly what it's pretending itself to be. A bit of a spoiler for what's going to be revealed in 20 minutes, I'm sure. But anyway, great. Again, I'm just going to say the art's fantastic. Back to being great sequential work. Also, it's just great character dialogue, great pithy exchanges between two characters. You don't have to have a worthwhile comic issue by just having two caped beings punching each other in the face. A very witty, hilarious conversation is sometimes better than all that, and especially here.
Do you either of you know if Grant Morrison wrote the script first or whether he did Marvel style, gave a plot to Yeowell and then put in the balloons afterwards?
I think Morrison's practice generally was to write the concept and the dialogue first. I know that was something that they did a lot with Animal Man and in future writings, but I don't know this early in their career if that was something Grant Morrison has done or not.
I can only assume because this is so specific. And I mean, like, for example, this page, like pointing at the map, looking at the map, reacting, cutting to the overhead shots, that's just something I think the writer could only think of. Also, I know that I've heard from people that have worked with Grant Morrison that his scripts, at least later, were very, very detailed. Not in an Alan Moore type way, but more in like vague like, okay, and then in this next page, like for example in Batman Incorporated, like I want this to look like the cover of, Batman number 119 from 1953. And then in this next page, I want you to draw the car that Elvis was riding in his third movie, and just these insane instructions that any artist would tear their hair out trying to think of. So I think they're very specific with their instructions, as far as I know. But anyway, I got to say, I love Zenith's reaction to this whole talk about, like, if you're going to have a character react to something, of all of the reactions you could think of, this is the last one I would conceive of, Oh yeah, superhumans, eh? Yeah, okay, well anyway, I'm going to the bathroom. I'd check under the seat if I were you. Those superhumans might be anywhere. Like, what a dick, right? But you're still laughing. Like Niceman said, it's like they're still so intriguing, even though he's a total dick, right? Like, if this person was real, I'd punch him in the face, but I still can't wait to see what he does next.
I get slight evocations, pardon me, of Blackadder with some of the dialogue, because there's this very intentionally unlikable character that you do want to see what happens to. Now, the twist is, of course, or I guess the shift is with Blackadder, it's always this deplorable character, generally speaking, that you kind of want to see fail, and there's a lot of schadenfreude. You're laughing at their failures. With Zenith, there's a little bit of a twist where you, in some way, do want him to succeed, but at the same time, not because he's likable or sympathetic. And there were even times, I don't know about your readings, where I thought, hey, it would be really good if Forehead really punched him hard. And,
right.
It would be great.
He needs to get taken down a notch. Any more thoughts, Niceman?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, let's jump to the next one. I think it's me, right? Okay, Black Dawn and Zenith. Okay, so in this scene, this is this is who is this again? Is this Ruby?
Nope.
But first it's Saint what's his name?
Yeah, Peter St. John.
Right.
Right. Okay.
It's a vision that he's having of this destruction of London with this black sun descending, and then he wakes up and he sees a character who we actually have only heard of, haven't really met before. Someone who we were told disappeared long ago.
And who is it?
What's her name?
This was the character, I believe, her name is escaping me, but she's the one that was said to have disappeared within the mirror. So one of the characters.
I thought it was Ruby something, isn't it, or no?
No, it's another one. So,
okay. Well, it'll come back. I can flip back if you want.
No, it's fine. Anyway, she's warning Peter. She knows he's had the dream and is letting him know about whatever this is called, the omnihedron is coming into alignment. And so all these very portentous, very cryptic warnings as she disappears like the Cheshire cat, saying, we know you are this big political bigwig, that you're trying to present this certain idea of yourself to the public, but in the end, no matter how good your disguise, you're still one of us. And she disappears.
Wow, this proves how bad my short-term memory was. I just had the name and I already forgot it. Jesus, that's embarrassing. Yeah, I need to get checked out here. But I know what page it was on. I think it was back here. No, it was back here. Bear with us, viewers. Oh, wow, I didn't have the page right. Nope, I didn't have the page right either.
Her name will be evoked later, so maybe we'll just, for the sake of time, we'll hold off on that if you want. But anyway, Mike, I'm sorry, I kind of took over that synopsis for you.
Penelope Moon. Anyway, okay.
Moon,
sorry, no. That's okay because I forgot everything, so it doesn't matter. That's good.
What were your thoughts on that one, Mike?
Oh, I loved it. I actually do love these comics when I'm reading them. It's just that I instantly forget them as soon as I'm done. Okay. But I do like even just this whole imagery at the beginning with the black sun. I just think it's so cool, The vision of Penelope Moon is great. I love it. everything here, and then disappearing. I just think it's a great little, it's really only one scene and then like a little epilogue at the end. But yeah, I just love it all.
So, what's the purpose of her visit to him?
Is this rhetorical?
No.
Okay. I don't remember. Do you remember, Adam?
Absolutely. She's warning him. She's warning him that he needs to be aware of this looming threat, the alignment, and that she is warning him also that he's going to have to join them in this battle taking place going forward.
But the alignment has a name, right? It's the
Omnihedron.
Omnihedron, yeah. Again, as I said, Grant Morrison loves coming up with these words. He loves it, right? Alignment, omnihedron.
Well, it's a little bit of a like an Invisibles-ish type idea, right? Like this coming,
Yes.
like the end of everything is coming. We have to get ready for it, kind of idea,
Yes.
right?
Yes. In fact, when we saw those characters in the 60s, the 60s characters, the young supergroup and their costumes and everything, that was what crossed my mind, the Invisibles.
Right, because there's a lot of time travel in that, jumping back and forth and different characters. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I blew that one. So whose turn is it now?
Since I did that one, why don't you do this one? We trade
okay,
off.
I'll try.
No, Adam, Adam's being very, kind. Okay, Mike, since you blew the last, why don't you do the next one?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like,
Mike is thinking, no.
I'll blow this one too. Okay, so I'll try. So Zenith and Phaedra.
Damn that adamantium. Damn it.
Huh? Yeah.
He's thinking, damn that adamantium.
Yeah, exactly. So now they've arrived they're at their, what is this? Now this is the place they're looking for his parents, right?
Right. It's some secret facility, and the only way to get in is through an air vent.
Right. Now, see, you want to talk about sequential art. From right here, this panel to this panel, it's obvious what happened. But the middle panel is a little bit vague.
Yes.
Like, right? Like, oh, okay, so I guess this is the grate, but the way, maybe it's the position, but if this is the grate, then what's this down here? Is that a fan? And why is it so symmetrical? I don't know. I just found it a little bit confusing. What do you guys think?
Oh, I found it actually to be very telegraphed. I just saw the speed lines. I just thought it was him throwing them up in the air.
Okay.
But
I think
right.
I think maybe if it would have been kind of like it's almost like it's too, like, see my hands right now? It's like too much like this. If one was like this and one was like that and they were kind of overlapping, I would have gotten the impression that they were tumbling through the air by the wind, but this looks just like I just couldn't figure out what it was. But anyway.
A bit too much going on in that panel. Just keep it
right.
But the panel after that is beautiful, isn't it?
It's very cool, like into the belly of the beast now. And then we get some great silent panels here. This is great. Oh my God. Okay, look at this page. Like, look, this is like Frank Miller Sin City-esque here. Look at all this. Black and white, all in shadow, white here. Then they come to this opening with their shadows on the floor there. That's just great. I love this. It's like the art's getting better and better. And so anyway, so then they come into this room, and then they come upon like this is like a dummy, right? That's dressed.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, this is my dad's clothes, and my mom's stuff here's too. And I'm thinking, where have I seen this before? Oh, Miracle Man. Nah, not really. A little bit of Miracle Man, right? Because we just read it last week. Then we get the reveal of this is Payne, right?
Right.
Yeah, wearing his look at his sweater. I love it.
And Wallace.
And
Wallace
I also
scientist.
and I also love the way that Grant Morrison undermines these action superhero cliches. Whoa, what's all the fuss about? All you had to do was knock. So it's kind of like the impression is, oh, this was for nothing. All this subterfuge and sneaking in. I love it.
So this is a point for yet another one of my desired digressions. A quick one. Did both of you read all of Grant Morrison's Animal Man?
Of course,
Yes.
many times.
Do you remember when there was the whole issue was about, some device and it was going to explode, and
Yes.
it was all a big reaching the climax, and then suddenly a character just reaches down and like pushes an off button and says, that's all you had to do.
All you had to do was turn it off. Yep. I remember it was a Thanagarian. Yep. See, I remember that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, because so this is a similar vein. All you had to do was knock. You're right.
Right.
He does love to undercut these kind of conventions, right? Mm-hmm. And I, instead of feeling like in the Animal Man issue, instead of feeling like, oh, that was a letdown, it's like, no, that's refreshing, because we can relate to something like that. Even with this superhuman stuff, we can relate to it, because in our own lives, sometimes we get all excited about something or all stressed out about something, and then there's just a simple solution. All you had to do was just like turn the handle. Mm-hmm. Oh, is that it? Yeah. So you can relate to that. And like this guy, it really conveys his character. All you had to do was knock. This is a perfect synthesis of art and writing. Steve Yeowell and Grant Morrison make a great combination, because even take away that word balloon, and if your job was to give him a word balloon, what would you say? You just see, look at him. You could just say, oh, look how nonchalant he is. So it must be saying something like, hey, there's really nothing to make a fuss about. It just it's no big deal. Yeah, perfect.
I do want to comment. On this page particularly, there's something really genius I love. The top panel is obviously evoking the creation of Adam, the famous painting.
Yes.
And it makes sense. Thematically, what happens is this character that's reaching out to Zenith is Pain, who is responsible for the creation of these superpowered beings. So in a way, he's kind of like the god who has given creation to Zenith, which is this very large, very boisterous, borderline pretentious sort of moment, which is completely undercut by, again, Wallace coming in there with his Christmas sweater saying all you had to do was knock. So you have this beautiful moment paralleling a classical work of art, and you're still taking the piss out of it. So it doesn't allow itself to become pretentious. I love that. I think if there's a page that encapsulates what makes Zenith such an interesting comic, I think this page is probably the best example of that.
I think you're right. That's why I say this book started to feel more like the Grant Morrison I know and love, because these are these little devices they use that this is the reason I love Grant Morrison, right? So anyway, okay, so want to jump to the next one? I believe it's Adamantium's turn.
I thought it was Nice Man.
Oh, because we went out of order.
Yeah, but Adam, you noticed how I remained quiet?
Yeah, it's.
Don't worry, Nice Man. I'll never overlook you. It's fine.
So here we're at 10 Downing Street. There's what's his name? Saint what? Saint Pierre? Saint what is it? This guy, this government minister.
John.
Saint John. Saint John, and it's obviously Margaret Thatcher in the shadows. But his superhuman name is, what is it? Mandala. This is Mandala, of course. So he's with Margaret Thatcher, and they know that there's a bad situation going on. The bad situation is the terrorist threat, right? So what are we going to do, says Maggie T. What are we going to do? But anyway, nice on this page. If you really like use of blacks and lighting, this is the page for you. It's really good, isn't it? With all the shadows and light and the angles, and the close up, and then the high from high up, and then from in front of a character, then behind a character. Yes, yeah, it's a great page. Mm-hmm. But then we go on because now we're back with Wallace and Payne and Zenith and Phaedra, but now we also have the two superhuman females. And their names are, what are their names?
Shockwave and Blaze.
Shockwave and Blaze. Oh, it says it right there. Shockwave and Blaze. And this man, he's not just Wallace now, he's Scott Wallace. And anyway, he's still very flippant about everything. He just, the usual supervillain, he just wants to build a better world, he says. We all have ways about it.
He also specifies, I'm not doing anything wrong, am I? Not really, right? This is
Right.
like he's the Elon Musk of supervillains here.
Right, right. Yeah, he doesn't see he's doing anything
He is a
wrong.
tech bro after all, so that does follow through.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. Phaedra protests that the world doesn't belong to superhumans because Wallace wants a nice world, a tidy world where people don't have to feel bad all the time. And but to show that he's mildly psychopathic, when she protests that the world doesn't belong to superhumans, he shoots her dead.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, just bang, dead. So much for wanting the world to be a nicer place where nobody has to worry. Because if you get in the way, he's going to shoot you. And of course, this is wonderfully fascistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got good motives here, and if you get in my way, I'm going to eliminate you. I see. There's no room for dissent here. Then no, I just want a nicer world, and I'm going to do it. And as he said, oh, I feel a bit sick now. I've decided to launch the missiles on Friday. So I'm going to give Mrs. Thatcher a ring. He's going to give her a call. And Zenith, his reaction is very interesting because Phaedra's just been shot dead. And he's only kind of mildly kind of like bothered by this. Even Payne says, Zenith, are you all right? He says, yeah, it's just Phaedra, and he's already moving on. Yeah, listen, what was that about missiles? And, Payne tells him what's going on. And Payne tells him that I've tried to dissuade him, but his heart seems set on it. My granddaughter lives in London. You see, she's a drama student.
Mm-hmm.
So his own granddaughter lives in London and she's going to be blown to smithereens, But anyway, as he says, I'm old and I'm not going to stand in the way of history. So much for the granddaughter. As I do an means, let me gather my thoughts.
Sure.
About Zenith concludes that Wallace is mad. Yes, but as Payne says there, but he's also very, very rich. Again, today we know that that's an Elon Musk type character. He's so rich that he thinks every word that comes out of his mouth is like, the God's truth or something. Anyway, so there's a chat between Zenith and Payne about, including Payne telling Zenith that he is evolution's perfect child, which is quite a compliment, right? Quite a compliment. And of course, once again, undercutting as he leaves the imprisoned Zenith. Is there anything you need? Yes, a TV. Don't expect me to miss Neighbours, do you? Now, do you know Neighbours?
I don't know.
It's a really corny Australian soap opera.
Okay.
And I made sure that I never, ever saw an episode of it. So how can I say it's corny? Because I'm a snob.
Well, but yeah, you get the gist of it.
So that's great. Zenith here. I mean, Phaedra's been shot dead. Wallace wants to nuke London. And Zenith's like, yeah, you don't expect me to miss Neighbours.
I know, it's pure Zenith right there, right?
Isn't this also a little bit like the 1960s, The Avengers, with Patrick Macnee and Diana Rigg? They never got too flustered by anything.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what the bad guy was saying or what was going on, never. And they'd be like, well, I think it's time for tea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, Grant Morrison did an adaptation of The Avengers. Remember that? Yeah,
Yes.
I've got that.
Ian Gibson art, I think.
I think so, yeah. So anyway, I want to talk about, I love this issue, but I want to talk about the murder of Phaela. Is it, no, what is her name? Phaela?
Phaedra.
Now, it's shocking, and also Zenith's kind of indifference to it is a little bit shocking. But as, again, storytelling, because this is a superhero comic, I don't need to be hit on the head, but I would have liked to have seen one shot of her, like she gets shot and then she disappears from the panels. Like, I'd like to see at least a shot of her laying there or something, because I've read 100,000 superhero comics, I need something more than just a shot, because I don't know if she's dead. Like, I know she's dead, but visually I need to see that. Do you guys agree or no?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't need it.
I think it's 50-50.
And I'm not saying it, but I think there's an added element to it that because we know in superhero comic books, characters do not die. They don't die. And so a lesser writer would have this exact story, and then in the next issue would open up with Phaedra alive. Oh yeah, I you didn't notice that I ducked out of the way or something stupid. And obviously Grant Morrison would not do that. But I would just like it is a little bit odd that a character gets killed and we don't even see her laying there or her feet or something. I just thought it was unusual. Just a thought.
Yeah. I think unusual is the right word, but I don't know better or not really.
Okay. But so obviously this is where things are ramping up, and again, Grant Morrison is turning all these cliches on their head. Like, we have the master plan, we have the murder of one of the main characters, and yet it ends with Zenith just saying, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to miss neighbors, am I? Like, what is this? Come on. He barely understands what's going on. What's this about missiles? Like, it's just brilliant, I think. Anyway, Adamantium, what do you think?
What I enjoy about this is something that I think a lot of contemporary audiences would have a critique over this. I think they'd look at the murder of Phaedra as an instance of fridging a character.
Okay.
And I think if you look at, textbook definition, you can make arguments to say that's the case. But I don't think that's the purpose here. This is a dark comedy. This is not a superhero story in the same vein that you're going to get for a mainstream strip from Marvel or DC. The whole part here that we need to look at is this sort of dark humor, this irony of this character who is portrayed as our protagonist, but is not heroic. And even in the last volume, even though he fought the big bad and won, it wasn't really from his efforts as much as from being saved by others. He's indifferent. He's a Nepo baby. And the whole thing we're doing is we're really following this character who, as the run goes on, will become increasingly harder and harder to find sympathetic. And I think even though we could argue about the mechanics of did a female character need to be killed in order to display this, and I'm willing to have that conversation, I still think it was important to underscore, we're really emphasizing Zenith is the protagonist. He's a superpowered being, but he's not a hero. And I think that's what makes this stand out so much differently than Marvel Man, Miracle Man. Because while there's a lot of derivatives in the story, I can definitely see that. In the end, Marvel Man was a conflicted hero who we question at the end of that run whether his objects that he was pursuing were actually for the betterment of the world. Here, there's no ambiguity. Nothing Zenith is doing is for the betterment of the world. It's for the betterment of Zenith. And I think that this issue, I think, is one of the most powerful character arcs that we'll see for Zenith, where we really understand, oh, wait, he's sociopathic. He doesn't care. And, you can make interpretations whether Zenith is sociopathic or not. Does that make him an unengaging character? Absolutely not, because that only intrigues me more.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think Zenith is Grant Morrison.
I don't personally think so, but I think Buddy Baker is closer to Grant Morrison, but...
Yeah. Well, maybe he's in between the two.
Well, because I know what you're saying, and I think when I first got into Grant Morrison, I was slightly put off by some of these characters because I'm assuming the characters are a reflection of the author, but if anything, I think this is a criticism of these types of characters because I know over the years Grant Morrison has proven how they feel about, like, even just the animal rights issues covered in Animal Man, right?
Yeah, I would say Morrison is too much of an empathetic writer.
Right.
But there's the brilliance of what they can do. They're very empathetic, but they don't have to make their characters sympathetic, and I think that's what's great.
I can just imagine, you see, like that last little bit from Zenith about you don't expect me to miss neighbors. That's very dry Scottish wit. And I can just imagine Zenith saying this with a Scottish accent.
Of course. Sure, but yeah, okay, well, we can get back to that later on because we still have this collection as well as 3 more books after this, right? Before we can make that conclusion. Okay, let's jump to the next chapter. So whose turn is it now?
Yours.
Mine? Uh-oh, okay.
No, actually, I think it's Adams.
Okay, I'm going to speed through this one.
Sure.
Basically, we start off showing that London is basically all but abandoned, that people have fled the city because they understand a nuclear strike is going to happen that Friday. We have St. John, aka Mandela, sitting around wondering what he can do, but not really coming to a conclusion of anything. Then we cut back to what's happening with Zenith. He is finding out more information due to exposition from Pain. Pain is essentially explaining the origin of the heroes and the motivation of what's happening. And I will say this is my least favorite issue of the entire run because it's very James Bond. Pain is going on talking about the evils mankind creates, the environmental, social catastrophes created, and it's not underscored by any of the usual dark humor. It's very surface level. And for me, it feels it could be a speech by any other supervillain. It's not that engaging for me. With that said, though, he is describing how ultimately he's perfected and he has created the strain of the superhuman through Zenith, that he's unique because he is brought about not by these eugenics, but by an actual birth between two superpowered beings who progenited and had him. And that's the leading into the end of the chapter where he says, "Oh, we brought you here for a reason, to breed." And he introduces him once again to the two female superheroes. And he goes, "Oh, right." And that's how it ends. It was kind of a flat joke for me. And really, that plot point in this volume, at least, doesn't really go anywhere. I don't care much for it. The only thing that I find intriguing is how the chapter actually ends, where Payne and Wallace commiserate a little bit more. They're looking at the artifacts of Zenith's parents, and it's revealed that Payne is waiting for this cycle, as we remember from the previous volume, of Zenith's powers to basically deplete. He'll be weak for about a single day where he has no superpowers, and then they'll kill him.
And it's brilliantly done, I think. I love this sequence at the very least.
That I like. I think the rest was too James Bond, a little bit too pulpy for my taste, at least in the context of this book. I think in another book it would have fit well. It didn't really have that sarcasm or dark humor I was accustomed to, that dry humor. And even the joke about, "Oh, you're here to breed." So basically bringing in these two superpowered beings to just copulate with him so he can be distracted. I mean, some people like the joke. I don't know. It just didn't land for me. But
I thought it was pretty funny. I mean, especially because he's such a doofus, but and they didn't hit you over the head with it. I don't think it's just pretty subtle.
Maybe it was just soured because of the big James Bond villain speech beforehand. But yeah, in my estimation, I think this is the weakest issue in this whole volume.
Okay, Nice Man, what do you think?
Yeah, I love these little touches, like, oh, by the way, yeah, here are two young females, and yeah, you're going to be breeding. You're here to breed with them. On the one hand, you'll be like, what? Oh, well, very conflicted.
Right.
Really, you don't want to be manipulated and used like this, but at the same time, my goodness.
Right. Right.
I also like the part where we make reference to Zenith's Achilles heel, which I love. A character whose power depends upon his biorhythms. He doesn't have to plug in to something into a socket or anything like that. It's his biorhythms. It's just so wonderfully natural.
Okay, let's just jump to the next one. Now, I don't know. So we kind of went out of order. So now is it me or?
Did we go out of order?
Well, because we went, I don't know.
Mike, let's say it's you since you so graciously volunteered.
Aw, Shucks. Okay. So now, oh boy. So now we touch back with so now we can, it is implied that Zenith did indeed breed with those women. Because he says, "You haven't brought the girls, have you?" And he's like, "They don't say much, do they?" Anyway, so then we get, oh geez. As soon as I see all this text, I'm like, oh no, I can't figure it out by looking at the pictures. But we get some more exposition about what happened with Cloud9, right? It says that they became, or sorry, no, Task Force UK became Cloud9, the darlings of the international media. And then we see a scene here. This is basically the origin of Zenith's parents, correct? And we see them driving along the road, and then they're attacked, and the car is run off the road, and then we get some like just brilliant narration. Poor Jenny. I used to lie awake at night thinking about the shock and terror she must have felt. Staggering, vomiting, unable to understand just what was happening to her. I used to see her eyes staring at me. She had beautiful eyes. I kept them, you know. And you know, when I read something like that, I feel Grant Morrison probably just thought of that on the spot as they were writing it. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, right? But it just feels that way.
And I just want to say what's great here, just to quickly interject. Zenith, he doesn't do the typical thing. A superhero or any other character, they hear this person in front of them plotted and killed their parents and, you know, had all these machinations over his life. And you were expecting him to scream out like Kirk to the sky going, pain! And fight him. But instead, he's just, because it's revealed that he used the DNA of his mother to clone and create these two superpowered women that he's been breeding with, he just goes, oh, that is disgusting. And
I know. It's outrageous, right?
But he was raised by his grandparents.
Well, sure, but he basically just had sex with his mother. That's the point, right?
Oh, yeah. Because yeah, they were cloned from his mother.
Well, we can't say out loud what we know Zenith is now. But with that said,
yeah. So then, so he's giving sorry, this is Payne giving the exposition, right? Shockwave was cloned from cell scrapings that took from Ruby Fox when she was ill in 1970. And it just goes on from there, and then he gets to the end of the story. He's like, well, the missiles are due to be launched shortly. Destiny calls. And he's like, well, what about my dad? What happened to him? You've got his clothes. Oh, your father survived after a fashion. And by the way, yeah. And then this is the revelation where we find out Warhead. Is that his name, Warhead?
Yeah.
Warhead is Zenith's father. And he's like, Dad? And that's the end of that chapter. It's pretty brilliant, I think. I love it. What do you think, Adamantium? Oh, go ahead, nice man.
You notice how, once again, Grant Morrison slipped in a joke at the expense of Americans, because what happened to all these, you know, like superhuman characters they created, well, this happened and they faded away, or they disappeared or died, and the Americans were behind it, of course.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
the Americans decided they didn't want Britain to have these super beings, so they did away with them one by one.
Yeah, and what I really liked is that this turned about. My criticisms over the previous issue completely assuaged with this. This is back to the dark humor. Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess you could say, pontification from Payne, but it's underscored with this dark irony, these like really great jokes that land so well, this dark humor, and then, again, characterization. I love this. Zenith is not portrayed to be empathetic at all. He's not screaming out, how dare you do this to my parents? He's like, oh, that was disgusting. That indifference to me is what makes Zenith such an intriguing character. So yeah, high praise for it. It really won me over after that previous chapter.
I have a question which is similar to many podcasts that we do. What would Jim Shooter say about all this?
That's a great question.
Oh, I don't think we have time to talk about Shooter tonight.
No, yeah, you're right. That's a tangent, but we can get to that another time, because it's almost like that could be like a little sub-feature on our podcast, but he would probably hate all of this, right? He'd hate the storytelling, he'd hate the writing. If it was a Marvel comic, like I said, there'd be those little captions saying, you know, this, they would hit you over the head with everything. Everything would be explained to you, so you wouldn't be able to figure it. Even the jokes would be explained, I think, but I have kind of a hostility to certain styles of writing. All right, we should jump to the next chapter. I believe it is Nice Man's turn.
what the hell is going on here? Well, so he understands that this is his dad, and Payne thinks that Zenith's biorhythms are at zero. So if they're at zero, then his dad, Warhead, is going to make mincemeat out of him. And Dad proceeds to try and make mincemeat out of him. Slams him here, booms him there. Zenith even tries a, Dad, wait, it's me. So you think maybe there'll be one of these scenes where he's like, son.
Right. A revelation.
Son, no, bang. There's no sudden, oh, son, it's you. No. So we're going on, and Zenith is trying to hold on for dear life. But as far as we know, his biorhythms are like at zero. So, I mean, this is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets scrunched, punched, runched.
I don't think we can say that on air. Wow.
No, I can't believe it. Okay.
And apparently bloodied face, and apparently knocked through a wall. And so he's able to kind of make an escape. Like he says, I'm free. His dad has inadvertently freed him.
No, that's not Zenith.
Isn't that Zenith? Oh, that's
no,
not
that
Zenith.
pays off later. That's
no,
else.
not Zenith who says I'm free. But okay, something has been released because of this. But Zenith is still trying to just desperately get away from Daddy. But then we cut to Wallace and Payne, and Wallace is alerted that something is wrong. Zenith is out, so at least he's managed to escape. And Wallace wants Shockwave and Blaze to go kill him, but Payne doesn't want to risk the girls. So Wallace says, okay, there's no point in waiting any longer, is there? Let's just get on with it. Let's just get on with it and nuke London.
Mm-hmm. And again, just so casual about everything, right?
Good night, London.
Yeah, it's almost sickening. What is sickening?
Do you like the title? It says, Next, the Parent Trap.
Well, yeah.
Right? With its double meaning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously this one was a fight scene, but I just think that it was really well done. And obviously there's an actual story behind what's going on, so I think that's why I liked it. But Adam, what did you think?
It was a functional chapter. It had to be there. It's a fight scene. You know me in fight scenes, but it was fine. It served a purpose. It had to move the plot from A to B. Now we're at B, and we're going to see where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can jump to the next one then.
Good idea.
All right. So now, it's your turn, right, Adam?
Sure, why not? We hear Chung, and there goes Zenith, breaking through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man, pursued by his daddy. He punches Warhead in the head, revealing the actual face of his father. It's been revealed that after the car accident that was caused by the shadowy group, he's basically brain damaged, and that's why he's able to be manipulated in this visage of Warhead. So Zenith is trying to fight back. He's getting clobbered, obliterated, and he sees Phaedra's purse. And this was the thing that actually clued me into what had happened earlier. He sees the gun and he shoots the light beam at Warhead, disorienting him again. This is what clued me into the fact that that strobing effect that disoriented him previously was her gun that she had in her purse. I will say, without this, I would never have made that association. So again, there are some discrepancies in the sequential quality of the art. Formally great, but yeah, that sequentiality sometimes was lacking in this particular volume. Anyway, he disorients his dad, and he's able to get the upper hand, quite literally by uppercutting his head off his body. And that ends the issue with, again, another funny homage to the Smiths, because it's an evocation of Hatful of Hollow, an album cover very famous from the group, with the side visage of this movie star. But here it's drawn over with Zenith, who is right, that's it. And he's not, I think, in the wrong interpretation, someone would think, oh, he was forced to kill his dad and this is personal. It's like, No, he just got beat up, so he's personally affronted. So that's why he's so upset. And that's going to lead us into, I think, essentially what's the climax of the story.
Good.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you said, Adam, this is kind of just another functional fight scene, but I was still fine with it. I mean, again, because this is a chapter, it feels like it's taking up a lot of time. But if this was a typical comic, it's only 5 pages, right? So it's not a big deal.
I don't think it's a typical fight scene at all.
Well, as I said, yeah, no. Well, as I said, there is subtext to it, so I'm not bothered by it. Put it that way, at all.
Well, the number one thing for me is that the biorhythms are supposed to be at 0.
Right.
But clearly they're not, because he's managed to slam Warhead, head on, shatter the helmet, being thrown against a wall and making a hole in the wall, which would have crushed his bones. So Payne told us that the biorhythms are at 0, but this is clearly not the case. So that adds great intrigue to the fight scene, I think.
All right, and we're going to find out why. We're going to jump to the next chapter. So now Zenith confronts, what's his name? Payne. And then, this is where Zenith reveals, this is the reason it didn't work, is because he's like, January the 8th is Elvis's birthday. So you worked out my biorhythm chart wrong based on the wrong birth date. It was just something thought up by his agent. So I think that's a brilliant little explanation, right? And then I also love how he disses him. He's like, and he says, so the guy goes, ha, and then he says, yeah, I've always wondered what it must be like to be a genius. I like that. And then he goes, well, what's the plan now? He's like, well, I suppose they have to stop Wallace from blowing up London. And then he's like, okay, well, I haven't forgot you tried to kill me. I'll be back. He takes off. And then so he's trying to confront St. John. St. John is still floating above London. And and what happens here?
He finally makes a telepathic link.
Yes, and I love how the words in his mind are out of order. At first, I didn't know what was going on. Then I realized it's just showing how imprecise the telepathy is, which I think is really cool. And then it ends with Zenith confronting what's his name? This is
Wallace.
Yes. Yes. And then. Oh, and this when did they first introduce the Lewis Carroll paradox thing? Was that in this story?
Yeah, in this one.
Okay. Yes. Okay, they introduced it a couple pages earlier, but I love that. And then he flies up and he says, I know what it means. The crocodile is forced into a state of indecision by the paradox. Come in, Zenith. You've got 4 minutes. Like, what a great way to end an issue, right? I just think it's brilliant. So yeah, I really like the action is ramping up, and I think it's really brilliantly done. And then of course, inserting this little riddle here from Lewis Carroll, I thought was great. So yeah, I really like this chapter. Adamantium, what do you think?
It's great. It's great. It's setting up for the climax. I thought it was in this issue. It's actually the next one. It's a great penultimate issue prior to the climax, and then the denouement. But yeah. I don't have too many notes. I'll save them for after the next issue.
Okay, nice man. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad that finally he's able to do the telepathy, which he had been told should be one of his abilities, and he hadn't used it before, but now he is. And of course, a typical great Grant Morrison touch. The words are not in order because he's new to using telepathy.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, jump to the next one. Now it's Nice Man's turn, I believe.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, it's the kind of big showdown. He's telling Wallace, you can still stop them. There's 4 minutes before the bomb goes off. Stop them. But Wallace is not interested at all in doing that. And the telepathy continues on. And so Zenith actually uses like a little bit of logic with this madman, which is what Wallace is. He wants to create a better world, but how are you going to do that if you nuke London? What are you going to do about the unemployment? What are you going to do about what are you going to say to the conservationists? What about this? What about that? And Wallace is like, yeah, this is. I didn't say it was going to be easy creating this brave new world and everything, but somebody's got to do something. And then I don't want to overlook anything vital. Just, he just, what am I saying? That, as he said, listen, it's not easy creating this new world, but Zenith is kind of panicking now, stop the missiles.
Yeah, I love that.
Stop it. And why would he stop it? Because he's stopping it because didn't he suddenly realize his daughter lives in London?
Nope.
No.
He just realized it's a lot of work.
The other one's niece lives, granddaughter lives in London. But Wallace just realized, well, look, Alexander did it, Napoleon did it, Hitler nearly did it. Do you really want to be Hitler? Well, no, but you know what I mean, a nice sort of Hitler. All I wanted was something better. But yeah, it's a lot of work because if you nuke London, there's this, and this. You got to take all this stuff into consideration. And as you said, it's just like, okay, this is a bit too much. I think I'll just stop it. So isn't this so similar to the Animal Man one where you just stop the bomb by pressing the button?
It's similar. It's definitely similar. Yep.
That's all he had to do was type sorry.
Right. Well, but also the way that he convinces him out of it is pretty brilliant because it's the kind of conversation you'd have with one of those pseudo-intellectuals in a bar that's like, what we need is a dictator. And it takes you 4 seconds to talk them out of it because they haven't thought it through at all. And that's exactly what's happening with this guy. This guy's an idiot. It just so happens that he actually had the power to launch these missiles.
I actually want to bring up a counter to all of this.
Sure.
I don't think Zenith was successful.
Okay.
All Zenith did was he thought he was able to reason and logic this person into deprogramming the bombs. But what happens on the final page? Everything goes dark. He goes, Zenith, did you turn off the lights? Zenith, no. St. John Mandela has actually entered his mind. I took this as Zenith is not a smart guy. He did not convince him of anything. Zenith was not the one that made him stop. It was St. John using his psychic abilities.
Right.
Okay. I didn't get that. Okay. Oh, okay. Good on you, Adam.
And yet Zenith walks away feeling he's really smart, inflating his ego once again as what happens with this character, despite the fact that I think this points to maybe he wasn't successful.
Okay.
So I like that little bit. It's not spelled out, so you could look at it either way, but I like this possibility of an interpretation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to jump to the next one?
I will, Mike, just to wrap it up, because it's basically the denouement. There's not much left. Essentially, St. John and Thatcher talk about what's happened, just wrapping up loose ends. Essentially, Thatcher says, Ted Heath, he's becoming dreadful, a nuisance. Do worry about his health. Anything could happen to him. Showing that, again, he's part of this wet works, this operative process to eliminate her political rivals. And then Zenith returns back to his abode with his agent, and he goes into his room. Just basically, nothing has fazed him about this, seeing his parents. All he says is, I had a rough day. I don't want to talk about it. Again, showing the sociopathic nature of Zenith. But what happens to be in his room, but that thing that we implied had escaped before. This is Chimera. This is the entity that could not be controlled, that had to be sealed away for the fight between Zenith and Warhead released. And Mike, only for the sake of time and because we're running short on our episode, do you mind if I just go ahead to the next issue as well?
Sure, go ahead.
I do love the makeup of Chimera, which is not a single entity, but this kind of energy that has all these different faces and permutations. It looks like Mothra, it looks like Marilyn Monroe, it looks like Jean Belushi all at once. And it's this constantly shifting sort of visage. What a brilliant thing. And basically, it's just having this conversation with Zenith where it's describing this energy. It's describing how nothing is enough for it, that it will continue to go and just be this great being And what happens at the end is it just fades away. In an anticlimax, he leaves his apartment. Zenith was on the phone with somebody. He just puts the receiver back to his ear and goes, huh, you want to hear something weird? And that's how the issue ends.
Because Chimera has gone to bigger, right? Universal to crystallize.
To such a macrocosmic level that it's not even an entity in the conception of us anymore. It's just gone. Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate, I don't know if Morrison kind of wrote himself into a corner introducing this character and not knowing what to do with it and just decided, ah, hell, let's just make a joke of it. Or if this was the intent all along, this kind of red herring of this implication of this much larger entity that in the end was just a joke. And I love this. Again, this is what makes Zenith the best when it's in these sort of issues, this dark humor. It's brilliant. And I did feel I had to recount both issues because basically it's just one story told between the two. But no, what a great little way to punctuate this run.
Agree. I love this. Yep. I only say this because Grant Morrison said it, but apparently Grant Morrison read a story by Len Wein in the 70s where the character, I don't remember his name, but he was brought back in Final Crisis. He's a supervillain with like a scale on his chest or something. And I believe that something similar happens in that story where he starts growing and growing and growing to the size of the universe. And so maybe that's where Grant Morrison got the idea from. Just a thought. But it's a cool idea. Okay, so now I guess we're going to go to the epilogue, right?
So we then cut back to these heroes that had been traveling through dimensions and time. Yes, we're cutting back to them. We have not seen them since, what was it, the third issue in this run, and we're all the way back. They encounter this group, or at least a part of it, called the Black Flag, which is this contingency of other superpowered beings from other dimensions. We get this idea that they could be adversarial, but essentially what happens is any sort of conflict between them is denuded by the sudden presence that just appears and explodes next to them, killing one of the members of the Black Flag. There's some great dialogue exchanges that happen, but essentially what this leads to is just the notion that this thing that was referred to earlier, Leorgor, I want to pronounce it as, is here. And it's ready to terminate the heroes and reality. What's interesting, though, is that this is not where the comic ends with this epilogue. There's a second epilogue where we're introduced to this alternative world, this strange reality. It almost looks like the type of castles, I would say, Dr. Manhattan created on Mars from Watchmen. But who happens to be there but Maximan? It's not quite clear if this is a Maximan who's part of this universe or if he is from the universe where he was supposed to have been killed. But he's wearing a blindfold and he's asking this other superpowered entity who was in the previous issue dimension hopping about Zenith. And we can tell from the art style this is a different artist. Still very commendable art, I have to say. But this essentially is the origin story of Zenith, recounting how he was unaware that his parents were these superpowered beings because they assumed civilian identities. His powers only manifested in his teens at puberty when he noticed this cabal of mysterious people pursuing him and his parents, and he decked one and revealed that he had superhuman strength. Anyway, it then goes into details about how he became famous, that he became a pseudo-celebrity and then became an actual celebrity where he ended up having a singing career. I do love that during the course of this recap, this sort of omnipresent being just says, yeah, and the music he made was awful. And it just cuts to basically a recap of what happened in the ending of the first volume of Zenith. And the entirety of the issue ends with them talking about all these different elements, the omnihedron, the what was the term they used? The singularity or the
alignment?
The alignment, thank you.
See, I remember that.
See, Mike, you corrected me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And this issue ends with Maxi-Man revealing, now we're within months of the end now, the end of everything, indicating that whatever this alignment is going to be this catastrophic event that just kills reality. There we are.
Invisibles-esque again, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, I love this, and of course, from what I remember, but yeah, just taking a stab at big ideas, introducing new characters like this, and this art is even it gets better and better. This shot here of a dead body is, well, not dead, but burned up, is brilliant inking right here. And although I can definitely enjoy this change of artists, this shows how good of an artist Steve Yeowell is. Like, this art is not nearly as good as Steve Yeowell's art, in my opinion. I also have to make a quick note, something we didn't point out. Did you guys notice that I think it was the second chapter was supposedly written by Alan Grant and not Grant Morrison?
Oh,
Yeah, there was one chapter in here. I don't know which one it was, but it was credited to Alan Grant, and I was shocked. But unless it was a fever dream, but I'm pretty sure it's in here somewhere. But anyway, while I look for that, Nice Man, did you have any final thoughts?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
Just I'm looking forward to the next book.
Here we go. This one. See, Alan Grant. Unless that's a mistake by the editor. I mean, I can do some research, but as far as, according to the official credits, it's Alan Grant.
Alan Grant did not write any Zeniths.
Okay, so that was a misprint.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it. We've hit 2 hours, so we're going to wrap this one up. Of course, I love this book. I definitely enjoyed it more than book one. What do you think, Adam?
actually, I like book one more. I just think it had higher stakes. Once you go from an interdimensional Cthulhian being that's going to eradicate the universe to someone with a James Bond plot to drop nuclear warheads over London, I just feel the stakes have de-escalated.
Sure.
So for that reason, I just felt it wasn't as engaging. We don't get that great chase either, where in the previous one, Ruby Fox and Zenith are looking after to find these other heroes, to get them to galvanize together, to combat this force. I just feel in that way it was a more interesting narrative. What I will say, though, is even though I think the story was better in the first volume, the characterization of Zenith is more who he's going to be known as in this one. What's really going to be punctuated in the next 2 volumes of Zenith, but particularly here, that sociopathic, unempathetic character who's only out for himself. It's widely implied in the first book, but you can still maybe see glimmers of a kind heart or maybe some hope in him. You don't get any of that here, and for that, while it's not as good as a story for me, I think it's the most Zenith that we're going to get before he really comes into himself in the subsequent volumes.
Mm-hmm. Nice, man. Any final thoughts?
Just it's all very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
It is,
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing, is that, there's sort of trashy fun comics and then there's serious comics, but Grant Morrison always rides the line. They're very deep, they're very experimental, but they're also fun. That's why I always say Doom Patrol is the best superhero comic of the 90s. I call it the Fantastic Four of the 90s, because if Stan Lee and Jack Kirby redefined superheroes with Fantastic Four, that's exactly what Grant Morrison did with Doom Patrol, I feel. And it doesn't get nearly enough attention. But we're going to give it attention when we get to it on this podcast. But before we get to that, next week we're reviewing another James Robinson comic, Blades. Remember this one? Legends of the Dark Knight, James Robinson and Tim Sale. This was my first exposure to James Robinson, and that's why we have to review it. And then we can jump to other more familiar James Robinson projects.
And I love Tim Sale.
What's that?
I love Tim Sale.
Oh, good. Perfect. Okay, so be sure to join us next week and every week. Our episodes are available at comicbooksyndicate.com and youtube.com. And that's it. I want to thank Adamantium and Nice Man for joining me.
See you next week.
All right, until the next time, see you later.